ladies and gentlemen, celebrating my 17th anniversary, my wedding anniversary. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. Also review a Prince Amongst Thieves, if y'all know who that is. Shouting out Jemele Hill, one of Detroit's finest. And we're gonna try to deviate from what we usually have, but we are gonna do the health segment. And we're gonna try to keep it nice and lean this time. Word is born, check it out.
I like the rhymes.
All of us are born with the miraculous ability to determine the direction from which sounds approach us.
Let us venture into new and uncharted land.
People get shook up, when I'm introduced as God.
You got that good hair, too. You're the first one out there with a dashiki talking that crap.
It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
I pull up, hop out, air out, made it look sexy. They won't take me out my element. Nah, take me out my element.
I'm not a businessman or nothing like that. I don't do that, man. I'm like, and I'm not hating on it either. It's not my lane. But I know, I was so thankful that The Mummy starring Tom Cruise flopped for several reasons. Because first of all, The Mummy's stupid, right? It's just white people taking stuff off about Egyptians. But anyway, I wanted to point out that I noticed that I think it was Universal that did Mummy. They were trying to do a shared universe like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? That's a shared universe, meaning you have all these different characters that are part of the same universe, and everything is connected some way or somehow, right? So they were trying to do the same thing with The Mummy, try to create this dark universe where they were going to connect, like Frankenstein and everybody. And then it's like, I noticed that when people critique this stuff, they'll say, oh, the shared universe craze, and I noticed that a lot of movie studios, the big ones, are trying to create these small ones. They're trying to do the same thing with King Kong and Godzilla. I heard that they're trying to do the Transformers. This is just like, a lot of this is just rumors. The Transformers and G.I. Joe and all these other things. But they're making it seem like there's this craze to do it. But only one franchise is doing it. That's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Marvel fan. Make mine Marvel all day, all day. But it's not a craze because only one person is doing it and doing it successfully. Well, one company. So let's stop trying to act like everybody is just doing a shared universe out there and they're trying to do it. No one else is doing it except Marvel successfully. Word. And you might come and say, oh, well, DC's doing it too, but they're doing a horrible job. So once again, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, make my Marvel.
Yes.
The name of the game is Light Works. Night of the Slips. The name of the game is Light Works.
Did you see that meme where they're like, cats be like, yo, son, we different. We cut from a different cloth, man. And then they're like, but you cut from a napkin, son. Yo, that's hilarious. Hilarious.
Yeah. Yo, I think Prince should run first on this one. I think so. Yeah. Yo, I think Prince should run first on this one. I think so.
So I go to see Woke Dave today. My youngest had to get a haircut. He cuts my hair, my youngest hair. So shout out to Woke Dave again. We go in the barbershop. I said, yo, you listen to episode 9. I shot you out there. He's like, nah. Yo, play it. So we go in, I play it. And episode 9 was called Honey Buns in the Microwave because he came in with the honey buns. And, so he listened to it. He laughed. He was laughing. Like, yo, this is funny. And then it was like, yo, he was the only one in there today. He was like, yo, everybody else was in here. They be like, yo, I like honey buns too. And I'll be like, yeah, I'll be the judge of that. So what I'm going to do next time is when I go in there, I'm going to play that part of that segment on that episode and see what they say. But yo, let me know what's up. Let me know, do you still eat honey buns? And I'm talking to the adults out there. I'm talking to the kids because I think being an adult, you shouldn't be eating honey buns. But at the same time, that stuff is nasty anyway. Word. peace. I'm over here at the Hispanic Heritage Festival in Dayton, Ohio. We go every year. We usually come here for the bands and, of course, for dancing and some pineapple drinks, of course. I usually wait till I get home to drink the liquors. But anyway, it's really dope to come out here. I always see a lot of people. Shout out to my man, Joselito. I used to perform here. It's been a while since I performed there, but it's really dope. Reason why I'm doing this part right here is because between September 15th and October 15th is Hispanic Heritage Month. It's like recognized by the federal government. So I'm pretty sure your job, your company, your school is doing something there. So definitely want to give a shout out to all the Latinos, Latinxes, all over the world, except you people in Spain. Y'all actually Spanish. We not. Y'all Spanish. Word. So I definitely want to talk about ESPN's Jemele Hill. First of all, let me just say that I really admire her, even though I don't really watch sports. I really admire her because she really came up. And she's someone from Detroit, from the Midwest, who has a really dope story. Like, I mean, if you check out her story and how she came up and the work that she put in, like, yo, for real, a straight trailblazer, a shot caller, and someone that I just generally admire, even though I don't watch her show. And again, just Wikipedia her, man, and you're going to see the work that she's put in, working for the Detroit Free Press, working for ESPN on the website originally. She worked for ESPN.com originally, and then her and her partner eventually had their own podcast, which his and hers, which later became an ESPN show, and then they got on SportsCenter. So, I mean, it's just a really dope come up, you know what I mean? So I just got to admire her for that. And what's happening to her is like really, really tragic. How ESPN is doing her. Like, I think it's messed up. But my biggest issue is just that, like, every now and then you'll see someone who'll say something or do something racist or sexist on their show or at their job or whatever, and then they get busted, and then you hear people say, well, they're violating his First Amendment rights. You know what I'm saying? Like, which that's a different argument altogether. The reason why I say that is because, and it's something that I teach my students, you hear people always say, well, that is my First Amendment right to do X, Y, Z and say X, Y, Z. And I always tell them, yeah, you're right. You're right about that. But your First Amendment also implies that you have to be accountable for what you say. And if you look at the Federalist Papers, the confounding fathers, yes, I said the confounding fathers because they claimed that all men were created equal, but they had slaves. Anyway, in the Federalist Papers, they talk about how, yes, you have the right to say what you want, but you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. And that's what they actually said. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater, meaning, and now they didn't have movie theaters back then, but they had like theaters where you can see plays and musicals and stuff like that. They meant that I couldn't go into one of these places and without there being a fire, I couldn't just yell fire. And then because what'll happen is someone can get trampled on and they can die. And I have to be held accountable for that. So that same analogy applies to other things as well. So yeah, I can say whatever I want to say, but number one, I still have to be accountable for what I say if it's wrong and it harms someone. And B, it also says that, yes, I can say what I want, but other people can say, hey, I disagree with you, and this is why you're whack. And people forget that part of the First Amendment. Anyway, what I noticed about First Amendment folks is they'll defend other, like people that say racist and sexist stuff, but they won't come out and defend people like Jemele Hill, who actually was this spot on what she said on Twitter, right? She didn't say that on ESPN. She said it on Twitter on her own personal account. But it's just find it funny that those First Amendment folks won't come and defend her, but they'll defend somebody else. And it's real, like, it's real, it's a double standard, and we know why it's a double standard. She's a black woman. It's a racist and sexist double standard. So just wanted to talk that up and big up Jemele Hill. We here at when my Killa tape out, we ride with you, and we got your back. Word is born. All right, this is definitely a shout out to Black Thought of the Roots. And let me say this, man. This is probably a big debate, and I'm ready to fight anybody in the street for it. So bust it. Black Thought is probably the most underrated MC in the history of hip hop culture. And on top of that, he should be in everybody's top 5. Hands down. He should be in everybody's top 5. I can say the same for Queen Latifah, but we're not going to go there today. But and I'm going to give you the reasons why. I know there was an article, I think in the Root.com they had an article, I could be wrong, about how he's probably the most underrated, but I wholeheartedly agree with that. He, with the Roots crew, he has altogether 14 albums with the Roots crew, which is a lot for a hip hop group, right? I don't know how many hip hop groups would say they got 14 albums together, right? Then they have 3 compilation albums, and then 3 collaborative studio albums, like the one they did with Jay-Z for MTV. Like, that's an example like that, which that is amazing. Like, that album with Jay-Z is dope, but that's the Roots, it's not Black Thought, so I digressed. Anyway, so just the longevity, just he's been in the game for a long time and he could still knock a motherfucker out, right? Okay, number 2, he is probably the best live MC ever, hands down. I've seen many people perform, many, from A to Z. I've seen many perform, right? Nobody comes close. That doesn't mean that everybody's whack. It's just that nobody comes close to Black Thought when it comes to rhyming. And look, if you were lucky enough, like myself, to have been born at a particular time where he would actually, like, people in the crowd would challenge him and he would bring them up on stage and he would battle them. The reason why he stopped doing that is because some people are fucking dickheads and they want to start a fight or start a riot. So that's why he stopped doing it. But there was a time when he used to pick people out the crowd and he would eat them alive. I've seen him do it at least 3 times. Stop doing it because people are assholes. Anyway, so you see him live on stage, he can pretty much do anything. And I know, he's been with the Roots crew for a while. He's rehearsed with them. But I seen him come on stage without the Roots and still kill it. Number 3, all of his cameos, particularly noted on the Punisher's first album. There's a song he has on there, and he destroys it. So anytime he does a 16, he is going to kill it. So I don't think anybody has been able to do it on that fashion like he has, right? So those are the reasons why I think Black Thought is probably the most underrated MCs. I mean, gosh. Oh, here you go. Another one. He's the first MC. I'm not saying he's the only one, but he's the first MC, because I can think of somebody else that does this. He's the first MC that can actually take a syllable and change the sound of the syllable to make it rhyme without being corny, right? The only other person that did that successfully is Big Boy of Outkast. On that level of lyricism, right? Because Big Boy is nice too. He's underrated as well. But other MCs have done it and they sounded corny as fuck. People do it now, but that's because they've taken from the book of Black Thought and Big Boy, right? So that's why, because they've seen them do it and they can actually take notes. So that's why I believe Black Thought is the most underrated and probably he should be on everybody's top 5. And I'll fight anybody for that word. Yo, shout out to my girl Riki. I should have put this in the shout outs, but I thought this was funny. Like, so I've only known her for I met her a couple months ago, but I haven't really interacted with her until a couple weeks ago. And so we run into each other in the streets all the time. But I know that I think this is hilarious. She was like, yo man, you rock like you from New York, and of course I had to laugh because it's I was born and raised in New York, so that's why I have this New York accent. I thought this was just hilarious to me. But I think it's funny because, and when I mean by funny, I mean it's wild because I left New York when I was 17. I'm 44 now. So I thought that eventually I would lose it. And especially because every time I go home to visit, my people's always like, man, you sound country. I spent in the military, I spent a lot of time in the South. When I got out of the military, I spent a lot of time in the South. And then for the last 10 years, I've been living in the Midwest. So, my accent has changed because of where I lived at, but not as dramatically as I thought it would be. But let me just say that fortunately, it actually pays. Like, you know, people like usually listen when I talk. A lot of it is male privilege as well, but a lot of people listen when I talk. And a lot of people like the accent. So it's allowed me to make a living doing what I needed to do when it comes to speaking. So shout out to Ricky. Yo, I completely forgot about this joint. I don't even remember how I stumbled upon it. I know that, oh yeah, I was listening to this interview with Prince Paul, who's by far probably one of the most underrated producers in hip hop. I mean, he's worked with De La Soul. He worked on the first De La Soul album, which was phenomenal. He was in Stetsasonic, did some production for them, which is Stetsasonic's probably one of the top 10 best hip hop groups of all time. He's worked with the RZA on the Gravediggers, and he's done a lot of solo projects that just independent and the underground and the dope, like Psychotherapy was fucking dope. Anyway, he does this. What happened was he was in this interview on Mogul, which is put together by the Combat Jack Show, and I was like, yo, I was talking about it on Twitter, and a friend of mine from California was like, yo, I'm a big fan of Prince Paul, so we started just, you know, talking. And I remembered, remember Prince Amongst Thieves? And I know it came out in 1999, so it's kind of like at the end of the 1990s, right? But Prince Paul, to me, and when it comes to the 1990s, he did a lot of stuff that was, you know, really dope, that really put a mark in the game. Anyway, Prince Amongst Thieves was like a hip hop opera, you know, and it was really dope. And Breezy Bruin, who used to be in this group called the Juggernauts, this underground group called the Juggernauts, Breezy Bruin, and this other cat named Big Sha, who at the time I wasn't familiar with who he was, but they were the stars of this joint. And what it's about is this cat who gets put into selling drugs by his man. So in it, he meets different other characters that make up this film, and they're all like rappers. So they had like Kool Keith, they had Big Daddy Kane, they had Sadat X, they had man, it was just, you guys got to go back and check it out. It's really dope. I mean, just Big Daddy Kane scene is like, I always love that joint. And it was just, you know, Kool Keith, of course, who back then was killing it in the game in the 90s. He put out a lot of independent joints that were just phenomenal. But it's a really dope joint. The production is amazing. There's actually a video, like a movie that you can watch if you can get a hold of it, the DVD. I had it on VHS. I don't remember what I did with it. I lost it somehow, but the album was dope. It's definitely something you got to check out. I mean, it's just, De La Soul was in it. Like, it was just on so many levels ahead of its time. Later on, MTV did a hip opera starring Beyonce. She was horrible in this joint. Oh my God, she was so horrible in it. And they had Mos Def as the villain, and they had Mekhi Phifer as the protagonist. And it was based off of Harry Belafonte and Dorothy Dandridge's movie called Carmen. So it was Carmen hip opera, and I guess they were trying to go with the same concept as they did in Prince Amongst Thieves. I don't know, like, if they saw it, because it came out immediately afterwards. I don't know. MTV got the production money to do something quickly like that back then. So, but anyway, Prince Amongst Thieves, you get a chance to find it, check it out. It's really dope. I miss it. I wish people would do more stuff like that. Shout out to Prince Paul, and this is probably dope. Word. One question people always ask me when it comes to approaching women is, when do you know when to shoot your shot, right? And one thing I will say about that on approaching women is that you might, she might be down for you. You might be down for her, but you might step to her at the wrong time. You might, meaning the opportunity just wasn't there. So that's, I had about three DMs about that, asking me like, when do I know? And again, I wish I could answer that question because I can't. It's one of those things where you kind of have to be there when it happens, right? So let's say, for example, you're at a club and you see a young woman that you want to approach, and you kind of like trying to figure out when is the best time to approach her. The music is too loud, or there's somebody already bothering her, or there's just so many different things that can happen. So when is that opportunity? Again, I can't tell you unless I'm there. Even if I was there, I still can't, because I won't still be able to figure out her temperament, right? Because it could have been a situation where she went to the bathroom and like 4 guys tried to hit on her. So right at this point, she's probably not trying to hear the 5th guy hit on her, right? So it's kind of hard to say. If you're at the library and you see a young woman, she might be in the middle of looking for a book for her research paper, and she probably doesn't want to be approached, right? So the only thing I can say about that is shoot your shot, man. I think you know when better than anybody else, right? You'll be able to assess the situation if you're that sharp, right? Because you might not be sharp enough to assess the situation. If you're at a supermarket and she's looking like she's having a bad day, you probably don't want to approach her, and maybe try some other time, right? But the thing about shooting your shot is it's a shot, right? It's a risk that you take, right? And like we talked about in episode 1, you got to learn how to handle rejection, man. So and I know it sucks because it just may be the wrong opportunity for you to approach them. It just be the wrong, just that moment in time was just not good, and it kind of like messes it up. But hey, that's how life is, man. That's how life is. My thing is, I heard somebody say, I can't remember who it was, but they say that it's better to be ready and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be ready. So my thing is, for the information we've been giving you these last 11 episodes, put that in your arsenal, and I will guarantee you that your chances of meeting more women will go up exponentially. I will say, I would go ahead and go out as far as say that exponentially than if you didn't have those skills that we talked about, right? So just get better and better at it, and you never know. But that's one thing about shooting your shot, man. It's just one of those things where sometimes you're gonna get a swish in there, and sometimes you're going to get an air ball, or it's gonna get blocked. So that's a risk you take. Word. So in this segment of health, I want to talk about fasting. A lot of people ask me to talk about this, and I was like, let me do this. Let me talk about it. And I'm gonna try not to get too deep into it, because I know for some people, fasting is a spiritual thing, right? And it's something that people really bond to, and they believe that not only does it give them it cleanses them physically, but they also believe that it cleanses them spiritually. So it's a touchy subject, and it's one that I was really trying to avoid, but a lot of people have asked me this. So I thought it was, I think it's only right that I do that, right? Now, let me say this. I do fast. It's been a while since I fasted. I think, but I do different kind of fast that I've gotten from and I'm not a spiritual person, but I got some ideas from Buddhists, and I got some ideas from people that practice Jainism. They're called Jainists, right? But I got some ideas from people that practice Jainism. For example, there are people, I know people that are Jainists that they do speaking fasts, where they don't speak for a couple of hours, a couple of days. Some do it for a couple of weeks. So I kind of do that sometimes. I don't do it for a couple of days because my jobs don't allow me to. I have to speak at my job. So I can't do that, but I'll do it for a couple of hours, if I have a day off. And I also do stuff I haven't done this in a while, but I used to do internet fast, where I would, I would not be on the internet for about 24 hours. And I haven't done that in a while. And I used to do a thing where I wouldn't touch my phone for a day as well. I need to go back to that. Anyway, I do believe that fasts are good. for several reasons, for emotional and mental well-being. Like I do believe that we spend too much time on the internet overall on average, right? And I do believe that we have to disconnect. I do believe that. But then again, I'm someone who interacts with people all the time. As a b-boy and as a capoeirista and as an educator, I'm consistently interacting with people every day. So I think I get a healthy dose of that, more than most, right? So there's that. But I think it's important to do that on several different levels, to just disconnect from certain things, whether it's food and things of that nature. So I do believe that it's kind of sort of like not a cleansing, but more so like a reset, right? Like a reset. You reset yourself and come back, and you forget about things that might be lingering in your mind. And I think that's crucial. Now, people like to say that a fast will like physically cleanse your body. Now, there hasn't been like any substantial scientific studies on that I found. I'm not saying that there isn't, but I've looked around. I've asked dietitians and stuff like that. And let me just say this: the medical community on a whole frowns upon fasting, right? And one reason is because your body does need nutrients, your body does need food and sustenance and everything. So there's that. And then there's this idea that it'll cleanse the impurities from your body. Now, speaking as someone who has fasted, I will say that my how should I put this? I don't want to say excrement, right? My excrement is like, it comes out like you'll be on the toilet. Like if you fast, you will be on that toilet. It's crazy because it feels like you ate a lot when you sit on the toilet. So that's going to happen. I don't know if that's cleansing. I don't know what that is. I'm assuming your body's just whatever was left in there is getting rid of, and there wasn't a lot left. So I think that's what that is. Again, I'm not a dietitian. I think you should talk to your dietitian about that. But there's no proof that it actually cleanses your body. I think it's good for a reset. I think, and here's why I don't, it doesn't, because dietitians and biologists will say, well, your liver is actually what cleans your body out. Your liver takes out all the nasty stuff that you consume, right? All the impurities and everything. That's what its natural job of the liver is to get rid of all that crap. That's what that is for. Like that is its job. So they're saying your body already has a natural cleanser, so you don't really need it. Now, don't get me wrong. It's kind of like trash, right? If you keep putting trash in the trash compactor, it'll keep taking care of that trash. But if you stop putting all that trash in there, it'll probably last a little bit longer. So I think in that sense, that's a good idea, right? And it's funny because if you look at like Buddhist monks and people that fast, they fast regularly, they usually have a longer lifespan than the average person. But that also includes, you can't leave out their diet. You can't leave out their lifestyle, how they remove certain stresses. And there's certain things that they just don't do that we do that probably wears down our body. So we can't just say it's only the fasting. But I have, again, I'm not someone who doesn't recommend it. I'm not someone who recommends it. I do recommend doing like a speaking fast. I do recommend doing like internet fast. I do recommend doing those kind of things, right? TV fast, like staying away from that, abstaining pretty much. When somebody is doing Lent, I encourage that because they get to give up something, and I think that's a good discipline to do, how to give up something for 40 days. I think that's a good idea. I used to do Ramadan, and it really taught me how to fast. And what I like about Ramadan, and I'm not Muslim, but what I like about Ramadan is that, Muslims at the end of the day, when they end their fast, they end it as a community. And then for Eid Mubarak, they have like a big celebration, but it's like a celebration every day leading up to it. And I think that's dope. I think the communal part of that is dope. And that's something that I encourage people to check out. So again, I don't recommend it. I do not recommend it. I do it. I haven't done it in a while, but I still do like speaking fast and stuff like that. And I think that's a really good idea. So I hope that answers some of y'all questions. This one was a little bit longer, but I just wanted to get it. I didn't want nobody to get any ideas that are wrong. I highly recommend you talk to a dietitian about it. There are some things we should remove from our lives, and I wouldn't make it a fast necessarily. So that's it. Thank you. going to try to make this segment as short as possible. And I did do a live session on this one. On Friday, the September 15th is our wedding anniversary, me and Bay. And you can find her on afromartha.com if you feel so inclined to support the sister. But 17 years, man. 17 years together as husband and wife. A little bit over 18 years together as a couple. So we've been together for a minute. And in the grand scheme of things, 17 years isn't that long. You know what I mean? Like, in the grand scheme of things. But for a lot of people, 17 years is a long time. And it's funny because I always tell people there's only two other things that I've done longer than be a husband, and that is be a dad. I've been a dad for 24 years, and I was in Zulu for 18 years and some change. So those are the only two things that I've done longer, and one of them is about to be surpassed. So in that sense, it is a long time. But we celebrate our 17th anniversary, and I'm gonna say this, like, ever since our 10th anniversary, people always, when I tell them that, they'll be like, "Oh my God, tell us your secret." And let me say a couple of things about that. Number one, I got to tell you the story first. So in my classes, I do this thing called Good Things, where we talk about, good things that we did during the week or that day, or we're going to do the upcoming weekend. I like it because, and I got this idea from a coworker. I like it because it kind of like makes the class a little bit more positive. It brings a little bit more positive energy to it. And it makes the students look forward to the rest of the class. And it starts it off on a good note, all right? So I like doing it. Anyway, I usually don't share, but I went ahead and shared this time. And I was like, hey, my 17th wedding anniversary is coming up. Everybody clap. Yeah. And I remember this one fifth grader was like, give us some advice. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you are 11 years old, if that. Like, why? In my mind, I didn't say that to him. But I noticed that when I tell people that is their knee-jerk reaction, they automatically say, hey, tell us your secret. Give us some advice. So what happened was, a good friend of mine, a lot of people ask, like I tell you, literally every time I mention it, someone says that. And a lot of times I kind of like deflect, and I might say something else or change the subject. Because I really don't have anything, right? But I remember a good friend of mine asked me, and I was like, a really good close friend of mine, and I was like, yo, I got to think about that. And I was like, I got nothing. Like, don't get me wrong, there are things that I learned about myself, there's things I learned about my partner, that you learn as the years go by. But to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I ain't got nothing, Like, I can't really think of anything. Let me just sit down and because I've been thinking about this, and I really want to make sure that it's right. Let me just say this first. I'm not speaking for anybody that's been married as long as I have or longer. I do not have the Holy Grail on marriage. I do not. I don't have the secret thing. I'm not Indiana Jones. I didn't go into the jungle somewhere and find a golden head or whatever, or helmet, and put it on, and then boom, I was marriage material and I knew how to do everything. That I don't have that. I'm sorry, and I apologize if I ever came off that way. If I ever implied that, I do not. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I just don't have it. And I think a lot of times we look at people who've been married a long time and we're just like, holy smokes, they are gods. And it's like, we're not. We really are not. And it's funny because I know people that have been married longer than me. They might be a little bit older, a little bit younger, right? And I kind of look at them the same way I look at myself. We're regular, everyday human beings. Like, we're not like the Minotaur and shit, right? We are not different than anybody else. And to be quite honest, like, I look at other people that I've known that have gotten divorced. I look at other people that I see around me that have not lasted as long. And I don't think I've done anything above and beyond that they have. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that any of them have done things that I've done, things that they either did better or worse. You know what I'm saying? Like some of them I think did better than I did in many situations. So I don't know. I can't really speak on any one thing or two things or three things that I did that were different than they did. You know what I'm saying? And I will say that life in general, right? Life is going to throw shit at you, and how you react to those things is really what's going to define you. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm trying to remember who was that said this. Or Antoine Fisher said that there's some people that you can put the world on their shoulders and they'll carry it like it's a feather. And there's some people that you could put a thumb on their shoulder and they'll fall apart, right? And you just can't, you really can't, you can't predict who's going to be one of those people, right? You can't predict who's going to hold it down and who's not. And there are times when I saw marriages that I was like, man, they're doing so well. What are they doing that I need to do to make my marriage better? And then like they fall apart and it's like, whoa. And then I seen people that have gotten together that I'm like, that shit ain't gonna last. And they still here. So again, it's something that's really difficult to predict. You just don't know. But I do know that life throws things at you, and you know, how you respond to them is really gonna determine whether you're gonna be a better partner for your mate. Like it's plain and simple. But outside of that, I got nothing. Like I really don't have anything. Like there's nothing that I can offer, you know. I will say two things though, that is a philosophy that I follow, that I even project onto my children, and to my students and to the people that I'm around. There are two things in how I treat, my significant other. Number one, she has never been, never will be my property. She is her own person. Whatever she wants to do, however she wants to get down, that's her, right? And as long as she's honest with me, I'm cool with it. And I know people are going to be like, oh, you guys in an open relationship, whatever that means. Because that could mean, open relationship could mean anything to different people, right? It's all relative. But it's how you define it and how you define it alongside your partner. That's how I look at it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But she's not my property. I don't look at her as such. I don't look at her, you got to do this and you got to do that. I've never done it like that. I've never been that way. My thing is I just want her to be happy. That's pretty much bottom line. I just want her to be happy. I just want her to never say that I regret doing anything with you or I regret being with you. That's like my goal. Like as long as she's happy, I'm good. Like I'm cool with that, right? The second thing is that I notice that a lot of times, I will say this, I know people that, get married, they were married for a while and they get divorced and they'll admit, they'll say, hey, I felt caged. I felt like this person didn't let me be who I want to be. And a lot of times it wasn't their partner's fault, right? A lot of times it was really their fault because they projected this idea that if they weren't a particular way, they wouldn't be desirable, right? And I never, ever, ever, ever want my partner to feel that way. I never, ever, ever want my children to feel that way. I never, ever, ever want my friends to feel that way. I don't want anybody to ever feel like I ever made them feel caged. You know what I'm saying? Like I never want anybody to say that being around Dan Trezomi, I feel stifled. I feel like I can't be my true self. No, I want you to be your true, authentic self around me as much as possible. You know what I mean? Like I never, ever want anything, especially her, to feel like I'm not who I am. Because if that's the case, then I'm not doing my job. If that's the case, I'm being overbearing. If that's the case, then I'm being abusive. Because that's how I feel. I feel like if you don't let somebody be their true, authentic self, you're imprisoning them, and you're abusing them straight up. There's no way around it. There's no way to me. There's no way to dice it. There's no way to put it that way. If you don't let somebody be who they are, who their true self, you're being abusive. That's just plain and simple. And we could argue about it. We could fight in the street about it, whatever. But that's how I feel. And I don't want anybody around me to feel that way, especially her. So those two things I will say that I apply to that. And I'm not saying that's what makes it successful. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that that's what it is, but I know that's what I've done actively and intentionally on a consistent basis. Like I wake up in the morning and I say that. I even do that in my classroom. I'm like, yo, do I make somebody in here feel stifled? Because if I do, I need to change something to not make them feel that way. And there are times when a student will be like, oh, I didn't think I could do that. And I'll be like, please let me know if it was something I said or did. And they were like, no, you tripping. It's just, whatever's happening at home. Like, okay, cool. So those are the 2 things that I've done. And those are the 2 things that I recommend that we apply really to everything. Word. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and end it with some shout outs. Definitely one of my mentees, I call him Kenny. I can't give you his full name. He just enlisted in the United States Navy, and he's going to be EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal. I mentored a lot of young people and students, and I've seen a lot of my students and mentees do some really dope stuff, but never in a million years would I thought that, and I'm a former sailor myself, and I wanted to do EOD when I was a young blood, but just my eyesight was too horrible. But he's doing it, so I'm super duper proud of him, and I think it's dope. And it's just, again, I have people that do some really dope things, and he's pretty much going to be a real life superhero. So I definitely give a shout out to him. Give a shout out to the young women of the podcast Tea with Q and J. That's of course Jay and the Queen, also known as the Queen Speaks, for always giving a brother love. Also got to give a shout out to Steph of the Dope Science Show, man. Waiting for those hoodies, man. I'm trying to tell you. And definitely want to give a shout out to my partner in crime. She's been with me for 17 years, my wife, Yatunde. And you can actually find her on afromartha.com. She's a textile designer. She's just an amazing artist, an amazing person. And pretty much the reason why I do stuff like this podcast is really because of her, because she gives me that opportunity to do that. Word is born. Peace. So there you have it, episode 12, man. Woo, still tripping on that. Again, if you need to get a hold of me, you can hit me up on Twitter at DanTresOmi. That's DANTRESOMI. Or you can also hit me up on Omi's Podcast, and that's at OMIS Podcast. You can check us out on Google Play, iTunes. Please subscribe and leave some comments on there. And we're on SoundCloud as well. We're going to be on some more platforms. We're just doing a little bit more research. If you want to support, you can definitely check us out on PayPal. And it's going to be dantresomi@gmail.com if you want to hit us up at PayPal. So again, I appreciate the love. Got a lot of love. Got a lot of questions that I didn't even field yet. But we coming through, man. But again, I appreciate the love. Peace.